Welcome, everybody. This is John Bruni, and we have an incredible guest today, and I'm going to introduce him in just a minute. First, I want to share a word from our sponsors. The Pressing Limits podcast is brought to you by ZionMissionaryChurch.net, where you can listen and watch messages, you can share prayer requests, or even find out how to plan a visit. And also by the newly updated NeuroPowerSource.com. These are resources for your mind, your body, and your spirit. And you're going to find all the recommended supplements and gear that I use, including the Be Strong bands, the new Juve system, the 3.0, which is out right now, and the Iron Neck. You'll be sure to want to check it out. For decades, Kevin Kearns has been professionally involved in the fitness industry. He's a graduate of the University of Massachusetts, Boston. His certifications include NSCA, as well as FMS, and many more. Coach Kearns has served as a strength and conditioning coach for some of the most elite professional MMA fighters in the UFC, as well as dealing with guys in the other martial arts. He is the creator of the Burns with Kearns program, which delivers innovative fitness training methods and philosophies that were developed from training and educating fighters. The Burn with Kearns program expanded into the educational sector, where kids all over the globe were able to experience the Growing Up Strong program, which works on promoting healthy habits through exercise and food, supporting the happiness and welfare of kids. He then created the Beach Bod Transformation to help individuals and groups of people over the age of 40, helping them to get into the very best shape of their lives. Coach Kearns' writings have been featured in a multitude of media, including the Boston Herald, Train, Maxim, Fight, Inside Kung Fu, Men's Fitness, and so much more. We could talk so much more about this guy, but I know you want to hear right from him. Welcome to the show, Coach Kearns.
What's up, you all? Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, let's get this rocking, because I think, people are really going to be inspired by your story. You had a really tough childhood. And I'd like you to talk, if you could, how that led to you getting involved in the martial arts and then eventually into coaching.
Great concept. Thank you, John. And it's an honor and privilege to share the mic with you and share this stage.
Thanks,
you're
brother.
one of my big heroes. So let's talk about your accomplishments one day. And John, get it right. It's not Burns. It's Burn with Kearns. There's no S.
Burn with Kearns. I've been saying that for a long time. I don't know if I got off. It's early in the morning.
You said Burns. It's not early. I've been up since freaking 3:30. Get over it. Cut this shit. I make coffee nervous. So I appreciate starting with this, because this is an interesting ride. And everybody, one thing I've come to realize in life is everybody goes through trauma. We all do, right? And how you handle it is how you handle it. So that's my dad's ring. It's been on for 40 years. My dad was a great person, but unfortunately, he was a functional alcoholic. Great guy. Him and my mother were able to establish rapport very quickly with people. And, with all the goings on in this country right now, I still remember this at 6. So I'm 54 now. I don't feel or look 54, thank God. And thank Christ. Not to get religious, because I'm not. Far from it. I'm spiritual more than religious. Anyway, this was going during the Boston busing days. And he said to me, only 2 people in my life have ever called me Kevy. You can't call me Kevy. Sorry, don't do it, because I'll flip out. One was my dad, and the other one was my Uncle Henry, who got me into martial arts. So my dad died at 48, which, back then, that was not old. Still, it's not old today either, from alcoholism. And it crushed my world, completely crushed my world. I sucked at every sport. That's why I wrote my book that's on Amazon, Always Pick Last. That's why I'm working on making it into a movie, because I was Karate Kid. So I got beat up all the time, the whole 9 yards. I mean, if you read my book, I've had people read my book like, wow, freaking Kev, are you kidding? Because I'm this enthusiastic, determined, passionate, visionary, and perseverance. It taught me perseverance. And, in my book, I write that it was like the loneliest year of my life, and the bullying just got worse. And I kept going to my mother. I remember that summer was the loneliest summer ever. To this day, my father died on February 19th, 1979, the first day of February vacation week. That week still sucks for me 40 years later. I remember it was a Monday. I went out to do and the suck part is they knew my father was dying Sunday night, and my mother made the choice. It's still it's still raw with me, believe it or not, 40 years later, because she never woke me up. The next day I came home from my paper route and I'm looking outside, and the plumbing inspector, because my dad was a building inspector for Everett, the plumbing inspector his car was in the driveway. I'm like, huh? I walk in, he still remember this today, could still remember the feel of the feel of my toy box, my wooden toy box that was like, years old. And he's like, I got to talk to you, son. He sits me down in the toy box. Now, Ray Donnie was a big practical joker. He used to chase me around the office at the building department. He was a great guy. And he said to me, my mother's in the kitchen. I can kind of see her out of the corner of my eye. I remember, this was like yesterday. And he said, I got to talk to you. I said, okay. He said, I don't know how to tell you this. I'm just going to tell you. Your father died last night. And I started laughing. I looked at my mother and I could see the look in her face, and I fucking lost it. I mean, I thought he was joking. I fucking lost it. And yeah, it fucks you up. My father, you think back and I see all the people that have bad relationships with their father, and it's like, fix that. And if the parent won't come, then fuck him. But the ones that have good relationship, it feels good to me, and at the same time, it stings. It's polar opposite, because he never saw me graduate high school, college, get married, start his grandkids, none of it. And the name of my company is Kearns. So it's a testament to him. But yeah, I can still get emotional about it because it sucks. It's difficult. I did a video on Father's Day that basically said, at his grave, basically saying, you don't get over it. You just learn to live with it, and here, photos have energy. That's my dad and me at 6.
Wow.
And then my this is in my studio, my uncle, Henry, and my father, who were drinking buddies. Look, even my father's got a beer in his hand. That's typical, right? And yeah, it went on for a year. I kept going to my mother, and finally she had to push me away and make me independent. That's why it's tough for me not to be independent now, because I had to be, as I tell everybody when I go out and do lectures on anti-bullying and fitness and all this stuff, and for corporations, especially for schools, I say I had to be 21 at 12. I wasn't the best student. I'm not the best student. I'm not. I have some book smarts, but I'm more of an experienced person. I got to see it, taste it, touch it, feel it to get it, and that's my certification course. It's built that way. A year goes by and the bullying's getting worse, and they're even doing shit to my mother's house, my mother's car. It's just fucking awful. And that's your whole neighborhood. That's your whole world back then. There's no internet and shit like that. That's why, it touches a nerve with me anytime I see an act of injustice or bullying, whether it be a domestic violence, a guy yelling at a woman or anything. I'll be the first one to snap. I always tell people, I go, look, I'm 5'7", well, maybe 5'6" now because of gravity. Who knows? And I'm 175, rock solid, and I'm the nicest guy in the world, biggest smile on my face, enthusiastic, and I can switch on a dime to an 800-pound fucking gorilla, and I'll rip your fucking arm off when I see injustice, whether it be verbally or physically. So I'm lucky enough that I had a close uncle talk me into taking martial arts. He's like, Kevy, I want you to, I learned in the Navy how to take care of myself. I went back in Korea, and I know money's tight. Money was extremely tight, so I'm not, and I don't mean to sound racist, but I'm not a white privileged person. I come from a 3 family in Everett. My mother worked part-time. We had to live off of part of my father's pension. We were probably one of the poorest families in the neighborhood. My father always had the lower base model of the car. It was tough. My sister was 6 years older and I was adopted. And my first love, martial arts, I started going to class and realized, and the teachers were very encouraging, Paul Taylor, Charlotte Matera, and I learned that if you practice enough, you get better. And I was like, shit. I'm like, holy crap. That was nothing. No other sport spoke to me. The cover of my book is so accurate for me. We'll take Kevin, but it's like having nobody on the team. I sucked at football, sucked at baseball. I could play softball because the ball was big enough. I could swim, was afraid of heights. So the local roof that everybody used to climb on, Fudge's roof, I couldn't do it. And I was always the one that was like, oh, let's take advantage of him. There's a very hard chapter where, the good part is I had a lot of family support, a lot of family love, which was great. I had 31 first cousins. Wow. My mother was a Depression era baby, had 8 siblings, and one of my aunts had 11 kids, and she used to always try to say, well, she had 2 cycles. I'm like, what? No, Uncle Al won't stop getting on top of her. That's why she's had fucking 11 kids. You know, that's the fact, right? That's the fact. So it's like, really, Ma? I can't hear you. Oh, there you are. Are you laughing?
Yeah.
Are you that choked up?
I'm laughing. What happens is every time if I'm trying to respond less vocally because it switches the Zoom picture. So I want to be focused on you. So I'm cracking up.
You're holding it in. You're
holding it in. You can see my face. So.
Well, it's like at 12, I didn't know that he's on top of my aunt too much. Yeah, she had 2 cycles. I'm like, what kind of shit is that? Right.
Yeah.
The good part about that is when you went to, look at that, outwork everybody, one of my fundamentals. The good part about the LeClaire's is you went up there because that's all you knew. Because mind you, I'm from the North Shore of Boston, so the Tobin Bridge connects the North Shore to Boston. We have a saying it's called the North Shore. We have a saying on the North Shore: life ends after the Tobin. We never went past Boston. You always went north. You didn't care if it was like 18 hours to Canada, but you never went to the Cape. Oh no Cape traffic, no Cape Cod. Until I got married and moved to the South Shore. I was like, wow, there's more to discover. You mean the world is actually not flat? You mean you can keep going past Boston? It doesn't end? Holy shit! So, you always had something to play with, and that was great because But that's all you know, right? That's all you know is your neighborhood and your relatives. That's all you went. That's what people did back then. That's what I think people should still do now. Like I always respected my dad. Getting back to that, I still remember this. When I was 6 in '72, he said to me when all the busing and all the shit was going on, he said, "Kevy, I don't care what color, what nationality, what religion you are. If you move next door, as long as you keep up your house and your kids are respectful." I haven't forgotten that. My mother and father did not care what color, what race, they didn't care. They never saw, and I still to this day never see color. Never see color. And I grew up in the era that, I grew up with Italians, Polacks. I should say Polish. Polacks is a derogatory, but who cares? Polacks, Italians, Irish, French, some Jews. And we all busted each other's balls. When you're like Boston, Dorchester, Southie over to the North Shore, once you get past a certain point, the North Shore is kind of like, kind of fluffy. But if you're touching Boston, you have an attitude, and it's called the North Shore attitude. You break balls. Hey, Guinea. When the answer would be, "What up, Hop?" I'm like, "Let's go play baseball." Hey, Polak, what the fuck are you doing? That's how it was. That's just how it was. You didn't take it serious. I grew up in the era of Archie Bunker.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I look at all the stuff going on now. I'm like, fucking get over it. Just get over it. I don't know if you heard Morgan Freeman's, and I'm not going to get political because I'm far from political. I don't know if you heard Morgan Freeman. I think it was last week in the interview. The interviewer said to him, "How do we stop this?" Morgan Freeman, and he's been very vocal with this, and a few basketball players have too. Stop talking about it. Stop talking about it.
Yeah.
We've had a black president. I've won multiple Grammys. So if this country's so bad, how the hell did I get here? All right, just move on. Anyway, that's my 2 cents in that whole thing. So, martial arts spoke to me. It just, I don't know what it was that spoke to me. And the other thing I learned at 14, which was a real epiphany, it's okay to ask for help. And I learned establishing rapport quickly from my father and my mother. My mother would talk to anybody in the friggin' elevator. She's 91 now. She'll talk to anybody.
I love it.
And I picked that up. Like my old boss, Joe and Jimmy, from my first personal training job, he's like, "You need to get more organized." He goes, "But your rapport skills are unbelievable." And it's just inherent in me. I can make people feel comfortable in an instant. I can walk into a date with somebody, first, second, third date, whatever. She can leave me alone, and I'll have 15 new friends within an hour. Because my whole thing is to serve. How can I make people have a better day? How can I do that? How can I serve? How can I make people feel a little better? Because who wants to be fucking depressed? It sucks. Been there. We'll talk about that soon too. It's not, in the sales field, they call it WIIFM. What's in it for me? And that's the problem right now. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? How about we the people? First line of the Constitution. And how about getting over the fact that you need point and click and it comes to fucking tomorrow? In my day, you had to wait a week to get shipments. Now everybody, we become, and I don't mean to spout off, but we become consumers versus customers. We need to go backwards. We need to sit down at the dinner table, turn the media off, all that bullshit. So I don't mean to get off subject, but my martial art career, I've been in martial arts on off for 40 fucking years. I've trained with some of the best, Shihan Bob Dickey in stand-up jiu-jitsu, Mark Delagrati, one of my closest friends, Crew Mark Delagrati, who's well known from Sityodtong. That's where I got a lot of my Muay Thai from, my Silat, my Eskrima, all that stuff from. Guru Guy Chase, who I'm back in an apprenticeship program with him from the Insanto Academy. John Frankel, who's over in Korea. He was my first Thai boxing teacher. John O'Brien, Overhand O'Brien, who taught me Western boxing and dirty boxing. Kim Messiah, who taught me the original Kung Fu. The original Kung Fu is called Jobo. And and this is going to piss people up, and I really don't fucking care because I'm 54. Jobo Kung Fu was the original Kung Fu. And if you look back at the movie One with Jet Li, that's actually true. China, as you know, I don't forget what era it was, but they were all broken up in different provinces. And then the leaders got together and said, you know what? We need to bond the country. And they did. My Kung Fu teacher, who was a CEO, who trained under Alex Anatol, who's a Russian merc. Hello. He had a book. He had this cool, he called it his Fortress of Solitude. It was crazy. It was this golden room. It gives me goosebumps, right? I still remember this conversation like 5 years ago. Golden room with a gold picnic table or something like that. And it had books everywhere. He pulled the book off the shelf that was 500 years old, showed me the chapter where it said, the leaders got together back in 11, 12, whatever year it was, and said, what people are learning is too dangerous. We have to water it down. And they called it Wushu Kung Fu.
Wow.
And I was like, holy shit. I'm like, what the fuck? You know what a Makawara board is, John?
Yeah, absolutely. I've used it early in my career. That's how I learned to break bricks and stuff. So
there you go. So picture this. He had a Makawara board, like a focus mitt that was custom made, that had this much padding on it. It was this thick, and he would hit it at angles I ain't never seen before in my life. From no stance, from here and go, load and go. And I'm like, and you and I have been around martial arts and strength training for fucking years. And how many times have we heard deadliest martial art, blah blah? We've heard that a ton, right? Most deadly, blah blah blah.
Absolutely.
So he hired me. I forget what year it was. Probably 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't remember what year. CEO, he's my weight, I'm $175, 6 feet tall, and 10 years older than me. And I hear this, and we're in his basement training, and I hear this, most deadliest martial art. And I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, fucking yeah. I've heard this fucking for fucking years. I've been around fucking. I trained 15 UFC fighters. I was in the dungeon at Sityodtong, grinding out with guys, sparring with people like George Rivera. I've seen this shit.
Yep.
Sparring with Mark Delagrati. I'm like, okay, deadliest martial art. I've seen guys this far from the friggin' cage, blood and sweat and everything going everywhere. So I'm like, okay, most deadliest martial art. So he teaches me how to hold this focus pad, he called it, which was a Makawara board, that thick with that much padding, at the specific angle. He's a foot, not even away from me. He hits it in an angle I ain't never seen before in my life. Almost ripped my shoulder out of the joint. I went, "Fuck the walk." I'm like, what the fuck was that? I'm like, you got my attention now.
Absolutely.
You got my attention.
Absolutely.
And I've seen him with empty hand, knife, sword, gun, sai, and it all looked the same, which is the epitome, as you know, of Kali and Eskrima Anis, when the Kali's first, which is the epitome of Kali, Eskrima Anis, and Silat. Silat believes that there is no transition, right? You go from weapon to empty hand. It's the same moves.
Well, can we stop here for a second? There's a couple cool things that you hit on. I want to just touch on. First of all, you were talking about, because we're going to be all over the map. We're going to go down the rabbit hole today. But what I love it. But what I love when you
blue pill or red pill, blue pill or red pill.
Because one of the things you're talking about is the instant delivery, the instant gratification. And that really is an issue with the fitness industry today, because everything is, I want it now. And we're talking about martial arts. That's one of the benefits of martial arts, is the gains come long-term. In my basement, it's funny you talk about a Makawara board. I have a board on my wall that was basically the same thing. It was just not an official, I didn't buy it off a martial arts arts shop, It's a big
You
board.
didn't?
Yeah, it's a big, thick board.
Century will get pissed off at you.
I think it's oak, but what they did, I had a guy custom make it for me, so it's drilled into my wall. I started out with an inch pad, and over the years now, I don't use a pad at all. I'm just drilling that board. But what happened was it's over time. It's the same thing with iron palm. I've done that for years.
Micro trauma, right?
Absolutely. But it's never instant. You don't go on that first day and just saying, all right, I'm just going to beat this board till my knuckles are bloody. So it's this whole idea of instant gratification. That's where we face one of the biggest challenges, and that's where I think one of the benefits of martial arts and the type of training that you do, because I think what we'll get into Burn with Kearns. See, when I'm not reading it, I can say it right. When I'm reading it, that's the problem. I must have had a typo on my intro.
Oh, my God, John. I got to educate you.
That's absolutely. So, I mean, some of the things that you do, people do feel it instantly, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. But the big benefits are off long-term discipline. It's that every day. Can you speak to that as one of the challenges that we face in the industry today?
John, I love your attitude and your intellect with this because – you and I have been in the business for 30 plus years. We get it. Mm-hmm. When we started in martial arts and fitness, and it wasn't like, oh yeah, so I'm going to lift this log over my head. I'm going to do it fucking tomorrow. No, you're not. You're not. No. You're not going to lift the fucking 800-pound log over your fucking head tomorrow. It's not going to happen. So the challenge in this industry is this. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. How bad do you want it? All right. It's like, there's a great picture here of Ali. Grind. You've got to grind.
I love that picture.
Yeah, but this is my new studio with my partner Chris Kavanaugh. This was nothing 10 weeks ago. Now in North Smithfield, Rhode Island, here I am. So let's speak to that. It's if you look at the old timers, it's micro trauma, right? Mm-hmm. Micro increases. Okay. You look at Wing Chun, and some of the Wing Chun stuff was they hit these pellet bags, right, to create micro trauma in your bones. Mm-hmm. You look at Muay Thai. And you kick banana trees slowly because you have to make micro fractures. Yep. And people go, that fucks up your joints. I'm like, you know what? You think like a fucking Westerner. Shut up. This is Eastern. It's like when you talk to somebody about, homeopathic or Eastern medicine, blah, blah, and that's the Westerners, right? Because we're instant gratification knuckleheads. And it's all our own fault. We want the pill.
Yep.
To get over the headache. We want the pill to fix this. We want the pill to fix that. How about you look deeper? Like when as you know, I'm a big yogi. My ex-wife got two of my greatest gifts was our relationship for the first 10, 12 years, my kids and yoga. She got me into yoga, and I used to call it fucking yoga. I used to call it yoga,
So Burns with Kearns isn't so bad. I could say Burns if you can say that. Is that fair?
Burn.
I'm kidding you. I'm just messing with you. Nah, I was just messing with you, brother, but go ahead.
I know. You're fucking with me. All right, I'm going to come out to Indiana or Ohio, whatever you got. Anyway. So, you look at that and, after being in, my first yoga class was like an epiphany. I went to a hot yoga class at Baptiste Yoga. Now I'm at HYP and Needham for 10 years. And every time the heater kicked off, I thought I was going to throw up. And, I looked around the room, and most of the time I thought of yoga guys as, these guys that look like stick figures. I ate 1 grain of rice today. That ain't my look. Mm-hmm. Then you meet somebody like Rolf Gates, who's ex-collegiate wrestler, ex-special forces, who's 210 and 5'10". And I'm like, you can fucking look like that and still do yoga? I'm in.
Yep.
And the weird thing is, yoga takes time. They think it's 50,000 years old. They don't know. And it was made because people couldn't sit with their own thoughts. The postures were made. So that's why they went through postures. But there's so many, I'm 11 years in, there's so many benefits to fucking yoga. And there's so many benefits to martial arts. And I remember getting my black belt at 16 and a half. And Charlie Matera, who was a 6-degree black belt, broke a block of ice in half with a hammer fist. Okay, so you listen to this guy. Very intimidating. Fu Manchu mustache, the whole bit. Yes, Charlie. No, Charlie.
Absolutely.
Whatever you say, something. Yeah. He's like, I'm proud of you that you did it in a year before. I should have taken me 4.5 years. It took me 3.5 years. And this is a concept I want you to remember, Kevin. You're always a white belt. You're always a white belt.
Fantastic. Always learning.
Always learning.
It's amazing.
Look at Hanshi Dave Kovar. He's got multiple black belts. He's like in his 60s. He always starts at the beginning. I'll tell people I have experience, but I want to start from ground zero. I have experience. I'll start from ground. I might pick it up faster just because of muscle memory, et cetera, et cetera. That's why when people say, "Oh, I'm uncoordinated," and then they say that to me, I go, "What? What the what? What did you say? You're talking about the most uncoordinated person in the world. I have to fight to do everything. I made myself an athlete. Talent didn't punch my ticket.
Yep.
Scratching, clawing. I tell people all the time. Woman I'm dating got upset one day. She's like, "Why do you always say that? You're 2.895. You're degrading yourself." I said, "No, I'm not." When I go out and do a speech in front of like 8 to 10-year-olds about anti-bullying, I tell them, "Look, I'm not special. I have a gift. I have gifts, but I'm not special." My college professor, exercise physiology, Dr. David Thomas, said to me after 3 years at school, it took me longer to get out of school. He goes, "You know what, Kevin? I'm proud of you." I'm like, "What, Dave? You never say shit like that." We're having a beer in his office. I'm 24. Never forgot this. He goes, "It's not always the people that get 4.0s in life and in college that do well in life. It's the ones that get 2.895s or the 3.0s that have to scrape and scratch and claw and fight to get that 2.8, that 3.0 that do well. Because you have to suffer. You have to struggle." Like this great quote from Muhammad Ali. Here it is. I love this thing. Don't quit, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion. That's delay. I just did a whole coffee as coach, delay gratification. That's the problem with this country. Delay gratification.
Yep.
Delay gratification. You got guys at my age dating, they're trying to get in a woman's pants right away. I'm like, "What are you, fucking stupid? What are you stupid?" I'm like, "You better build something. You've got to build that bridge. Just like you have to trust in your fitness coach, not trainer. If you want the little fucking clipboard, go fucking find somebody else. I'm expensive. You're expensive. Yeah." And I always say to people like, "Well, like, you're very expensive." And this is, I'm sorry if I get off subject. But it has to do with it has to do with two of my main things. Okay. Two of my main things, which I call the 2 C's: commitment and consistency. And you can't it's a question on my exam for my trainer levels, my coaches, my Burma Kearns certification program. It's a question. And they're like, "Coach, which one?" And no matter what anybody says, I never say it's wrong. They're like, "Well, which one is it?" I go, "It's the chicken and the egg." When you become consistent, you become committed. When you're committed, you become consistent. So think about that. Then I tell them after that, it's the 3 Ds: desire, discipline, and dedication. Once you become committed and consistent, you get desire. "Oh, I want to go further." You get discipline. "Oh, I'm here every day." You get determination. "I'm not going to quit." That's what develops over time. And I think if you approach that in life, in business, in health, it works. You can have the big lofty goals, and maybe you weren't taught how to win. You probably weren't taught how to win. You had to learn how to win, right? I had to learn how to win.
Absolutely. And you're hitting on so many good things. I heard a good quote, and it's been a long time, so I'm not sure which university said it, but the president said, "You should treat your 4.0 students good," but he said you should treat your 3.0 and under students really, really, really well, because they're the ones that are going to come back and build you a building someday. They're going to be the millionaires. They're going to be the ones who are going to put their name on the stadium. And it's so true, because they fight for everything that they have. And that's, you're hitting out of the park. And what's so interesting, I just have to touch on yoga. I love that. One of the things that I practice a lot is Persian yoga. Because my body has been so beat up over the years. So I do use the clubs, but especially using the boards for all the downward, upward dog, the Hindu push-ups. And,
awesome.
People have no idea. They think, well, you're just about strength. I'm like, you have no idea. A great system, which we'll get into, covers everything. You cannot leave any stone unturned. You can't be a one-trick pony and do it, because, you're talking, what, 54 you said?
Yeah.
And I'm 49.
54. Still got abs.
54, and I'm 49, and I'm doing stuff I couldn't do in my 20s. The recovery takes longer, but it's the whole point of not being a one-trick pony. And
exactly.
Because of that, is that how you got involved with the UFC? Is that why UFC fighters? Because I think a lot of people want to know how
That's a great question.
How you made that jump from being, I'm a martial artist, and then you became that coach of the UFC guys. What is it that made you stand out? What is it that changed? Because you really did change you flipped the switch. You changed the game.
I appreciate that, John. I appreciate the accolades and the honor that you, especially from you giving me. So it's interesting because, I started out as a bodybuilder from age 15 till about, God, how old was I? Maybe 28, you know? Started out as a bodybuilder. I was strong. I'm a little shit, but I'm strong as fuck. I was 17, 155, and I think you probably think this is pretty good. I was benching 320. Not bad, right?
Not bad at all.
24, my best leg press was 996 for reps. I used to warm up with 600 pounds. I mean, my legs are huge, and that wasn't built on curls. That's a 17 and a half inch arm. And I haven't done a curl. I legitimately haven't done a preacher curl or a bar curl or a bicep curl in 25 years. 25 years. So, and my thighs are like 26 and a half. I just know because I measured them. And I haven't done a back bar squat in 25 years.
Wow.
So I tweaked my back one time because I always pushed. Do you remember when centuries were popular? Century reps, 50
century sets,
reps?
Yeah.
So I was in UMass Boston at exercise physiology, and I started playing with the whole concept time under tension before it became a reality. Mm-hmm. And if you remember going back to that, it was always heavy weight, less reps, right, to build strength and size. And I'm always the one in class that would raise my hand, Dr. Thomas, I don't fucking get that. I'm always the one that would, as I say in my certifications with my Boston accent, color outside the fucking lines. Fuck the lines. Fuck the lines. Do you want to be an eagle or do you want to be a duck? A duck sits down on the duck shit, quack, 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 or you want to soar? I want to fucking soar. And I tell people, I go, look, I've been called crazy since I was 21. So I was doing 50 to 100 reps, and, the bodybuilders and the people with, exercise physiology degrees, and they were like busting my balls in the gym. I'm like, whatever. 5 years later, century reps come out. The new hottest thing, time under tension. I'm like, no fucking shit. So fast forward about 20, I'm about 28, maybe almost 30. It's like 1997, 98. I'm squatting without a belt because I started thinking, I'm relying on a belt to squat. I shouldn't be doing that. And I tweaked my back. And I've always had neck issues. Don't have them anymore thanks to yoga. From 2 head-on car collisions, which weren't my fault. Multiple weightlifting injuries. And hurt my back. And then I'm at a client's house, and Jim Miller's on talking about stability balls. And then relax the back store just open across from the gym I owned. I'm like, fuck it. I was gonna go PT. I grabbed the ball, and that was it. I'm like, holy shit, this is hard. And then I don't know why, I don't know how, but I was on the Perform Better, which is right in Rhode Island, their first workshop series. It was their second annual. Went in there, met people like Fern Gambetta, JC Santana, who else? Gary Gray, the father of functional training, Gray Cook, who else? Ryan Lee, Michael Clark, who started NASM. And I literally flipped the switch and said, fuck this weightlifting shit. I'm going to fucking functional training. I remember the first day not doing legs, and I'm like, oh my God, my legs are going to shrink. Stupid, and it just evolved from there. And I just started getting all this crazy concepts. And I owned the gym. And now you start seeing rebounders, medicine balls, BOSU, stability balls showing up. And people were like, what the hell? And I had all my staff turned on to it. Because then I realized it was about integration, not separation. Integration, because you throw a punch, it isn't like my bicep does this, my tricep does that. That's not what it is. Your entire body is involved in the action. So then I started doing the math. I'm like, okay, if I activate more joints, activate more patterns, I activate more muscle, I burn more fucking calories. That makes sense to me. I'm not smart. Well, I kind of am smart sometimes, but I'm not smart. And I'm like, that makes sense. So, I get introduced to Mark Delagrati, who's an old friend of mine from Guy Chase, which we trained together. Mark went into martial art field. I went into fitness and built our businesses. Steve Whittier, Coach Whittier, from 40 plus BJJ, who I was training with. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu doesn't take with me. I've tried it and it just doesn't work. I always tell people, like, why don't you grapple? I said, look, I'm a punch, kick, stab, elbow guy. That's what I am. Bite, too. If you get me on the ground, I'm going to fucking bite you, or I'm going to stick my finger right up your ass. I said, it's combat to me. I'm not going to try to get you in side control, try to grapple with you and choke you. I ain't going to do it. If we're on the ground, it's no holds barred. I'll break your nuts. I'll do anything. I'll do whatever it takes, because it's combat.
Yep.
It's combat. And, nothing wrong with BJJ. It just didn't take for me. So I started experimenting with all this stuff. And then, I was training at Sityodtong, Mark Delagrati's place, and all these fighters came in. It was just UFC was just starting to take hold. Dana had just bought it the whole bit, and I see like a medicine ball in the Sityodtong with it's got duct tape on it, and like nobody's using it. Stability ball, nobody's really using it. Then I started talking to some of the fighters, the amateurs, like, "Oh yeah, I'm still deadlifting, and my fight's 6 weeks away." I went, "Huh? That don't make sense. You should be doing sport specific shit." And I knew that from, JC Santana and Gray Cook and all those guys. I'm like, that don't make sense. So Mark says, "Hey, why don't you help this guy out, this amateur?" Bang. That's how it kind of started. And then, Kenny and I knew each other from Roberto Maya's Boston BJJ. And, he was an up and coming fighter. I was a sponsor for us and got on the shorts. The big joke was he was the fighter that didn't look like the fighter. Dana used to say, he looks like the accountant that you want to pick a fight with at the end of the bar. Mark Delagrati is the one who perfected his stand-up skills, and Peter Welch, but more Mark both of them really, but Mark's really responsible for, his Muay Thai. And, he got lucky, face facts, he did get lucky at UFC because, when he went on the show, Ultimate Fighter, he was a 185er. He had no business being 185, right? He had no business. He made it, and then, blew it when, he didn't do so well against Diego Sanchez. And then came back and, the whole 9 yards. I connected with him, and, I was a sponsor and the whole bit and this, that, and the other thing. I hooked him up with his business manager, who was my business manager. So lo and behold, he goes to fight Sean Shirk after he has all these wins. And he had a bad back issue for years. Like nobody knows this. There was an original Sam Stout fight he was supposed to be in. He went to get a T-shirt out of a drawer in Vegas, pulled his back out, so that fight got canceled.
I've never heard that before.
Nobody knows that. Nobody knows that, and I won't get in trouble with it. And I don't give a fuck if I do get in trouble. So yeah, nobody knew that, so they canceled that fight. So he's doing pretty well, and then they decide UFC decides to come up with a lightweight division, right? And Kenny's the number one contender, and Sean Shirk. Clearly, you look at him; they're outmatched. I mean, they call him the Muscle Shark, and his wrestling is superior. And Kenny still had the body that didn't look like a fighter. 3 weeks before the fight, I'm on the shorts and the whole bit, the patch. 3 weeks before this fight, Ron Weinberg, my good friend and marketing manager, Kenny's marketing manager, I put them together, says, "Hey, Kev, Kenny hurt his back. I live one town away." I go, "Well, where's Doug, his strength coach?" He had this knucklehead 26-year-old that didn't know shit. And I can say that with all honesty because he didn't know shit, because I'm like 38 at the time. I'm like, this kid doesn't know ass, Oh, he's back in Vermont with his girlfriend. I go, well, that fucking helps. He's got a fight in 3 weeks. He's like, can you go over and do the myofascial release techniques and the PNF techniques with him and blah, 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 blah. I said, absolutely. I called Kenny. I said, let me come over. He's like, all right. So I stretched him out for 2 hours. And during that time, one of my biggest quotes that I don't know, you probably don't know, and I don't know. Maybe you know where it comes from. I don't know. When your heart speaks, take good notes. Well, I'll put a Boston spin on that. When your heart speaks, shut the fuck up and listen. Okay? So I've always listened to this. So I got this hot thought myself. I said, hey, Kenny, how about I do this? I'll come out on my own nickel to Vegas for your fight because I want you to win. I'll work with you, stretch you, do whatever I have to do every day, pay my own way. He looked at me and says, great idea. So I spent $1,200 of my own money that I didn't have and went out. And literally, I thought I was like a few blocks away in Vegas. And you know how far Vegas is, a few blocks.
It seems like the buildings are getting further and further away when you're walking.
Oh, absolutely.
Downtown.
I mean, they're like fucking streets. I mean, they're like miles away. And I look at my map and I go, oh, it's not that far. Yeah, fucking 2 mile walk every day in 110-degree heat. Nice move, Kevin. And, they wouldn't get up. That was just Kenny's schedule, which I didn't agree with. They wouldn't get up until like 11.
Wow.
And I'm up at like 6 going, doing, 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 doing. I'm like, now what? I'm on my computer. This is before the internet and everything else. And I would walk every day to work with them. Walk every day. I got in the stands and the whole 9 yards and the whole bit. It was great. And, Kenny fought his ass off, as you know. Cut Sean in the second round. He bled everywhere. And, Kenny had to take 4 showers to get rid of the blood. Now, he didn't realize by losing, he elevated his status, his branding. So when he came back, he said, I got to make a change, and hired me. So I remember day fucking one, in my basement, and the doctor, they call me Dr. Evil too, right?
I haven't heard that.
Yes. So he started calling me Dr. Evil. So I've got a number of nicknames. Coach Kearns, Coach K, Dr. Evil is the other side of me.
Love it. I love it.
And hey, you know what? If you're a pro, I'm going to treat you like a pro. If you're going to be a fucking pansy, I'm going to kick you right in the fucking ass.
Yep.
I got some other nicknames like Super Kev. That's what my editor Nick Pete calls me from Fight Disciples. What else? 2K. That's from my editor
2K, yeah.
Doug Jeffrey. The whole 9 yards. Anyway, it's kind of fun, right? And I noticed this pattern of these guys fighting, winning, and then fucking off, then getting serious 6 weeks before the fight. Doesn't work for me. So Kenny and I are in my basement. And now he's going to contract the whole 9 yards. He's going to fight Dokanami Mishima. If you remember back then, Dokanami Mishima was the number 2 guy in Pride. Pride is no joke, and the Japanese fighter is no joke, as you know. It's a serious fight, and this is his comeback, right? And it's going to be on Fight Night Live on Spike. So we're in my basement, and I say, and he was late too, which I wasn't happy. I go, "Do you like Tiger Woods, Kenny?" He's like, "Yeah, I like Tiger Woods." I go, "He's a pro, right?" He's like, "Yeah, he's a pro." Okay. So do you like Tom Brady? He's like, "Yeah, I like Tom Brady." I go, "He's a pro, right?" He's like, "Yeah, he's a pro." I go, "Are you a pro?" "Yeah." I go, "Then fucking act like it." There is no off season. You would hear him, if you go back in interviews, you hear him slip that in every time. There is no off season. I said, we train, you fight, unless you're injured, you get a week off and you're fucking back in the gym. You get me? Okay, coach. That was it. And I literally it was a great experiment because I built my system, which is, so many weeks of strength hypertrophy, so many weeks of explosive power, and then gas in the tank, which I'm really well known for, which is sport specific, crazy MMA moves with all these crazy things. That's what I'm known for, and it worked. And then what happened is Mark Delacroix just kept hooking me up with fighter after fighter after fighter. Kenny kept winning. That was it. I mean, when I walked out to that first fight, I'm like, okay, he's either going to win or he's not. And my whole take on all my 15 fighters, Marcus Davis, who I'm still friendly with, Kurt Pellegrino, still friendly with, all Nate Corey, Stephen Bonner, all those guys. Anytime I was at a fight, I go, look, you're not going to lose George L. You're not going to lose because of your conditioning. And that has a mental thing too, right? Mm-hmm. If you know your condition, you're like, yeah, man. Yeah, man. I got plenty of gas in the tank.
Absolutely. It's definitely a mental advantage. And you know what I love about all this? There's several things. The first thing is that you bet on yourself. When you believe in what you're doing, you'll spend your own money. That's how it shows how much you believed in it. You're saying, hey, I don't need somebody that's going to invest in me. I need to invest in myself. And then people will invest in me. And I love that. And then the whole sport-specific thing, John Brookfield used to say, what's the best?
Oh, love John. Yeah. Tell him to say hi.
Yeah, I will. And we talk about this all the time. He said, what's the best exercise for a field goal kicker? Well, kicking field goals. Everything else is assistance. Everything is to help build that. But, I think in fighting for a long time, people just lost sight of that, not realizing that sports-specific is everything. And I'd like you just to talk a little bit, and I want to get a little deeper in a moment, but what are some of the implements, the things that you do that make it so different from everything else? I know you're a big fan of the Bosu ball. I use the Bosu Elite, by the way, every day.
Awesome, right? Awesome.
Everything's come so long. I remember when I first began using stability, but I try and balance on it, stand on the old this is before Bosu was mainstream.
Oh, Jesus, John.
I tried to. It didn't turn out well, so I didn't do it very often.
Really?
I knew there was some ideas behind this, and now it's come full circle. I know you guys use Bosu ball. We just talked about using the surge, all these different types of things. Explain what makes what makes Burn with Kearns different, and what implements you use that a lot of people don't understand, that you can be an elite person. And these are the kind of things that you need to integrate into your training. It's not just about barbells and dumbbells.
Thanks, John, for touching on that. There's a place for barbells and dumbbells, but then when it gets down to a competition, or as you know, the more you train, the more adaptable you get, correct? Mm-hmm. And the less increases, you see these little blips. Like the person who starts an exercise program, they'll have this huge weight loss, this huge blah, 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 and then they plateau. How do you get those little blips? You got to change your program. You got to change your mindset. I've got the entire North Smithville Police Department coming over here in a couple hours because they got to train differently. And I train them like fighters because their mentality, like the guys that are my age, like Chief Lafferty, he's a tough son of a bitch.
Yep.
And these young guys have never been punched in the face. They've never taken. So I give them more MMA moves, more specific. So the idea behind my system, especially gas in the tank, is I have the ability, I don't know what it is, it's the savant in me, for lack of a better word, to look at something. Like we take the gas in the tank protocol, which is something interesting I came up with. It's a 2.1, it's a HIT protocol, but it's a 2.12 to 1 ratio. So in other words, it's an extra 5 seconds or 3 seconds, and it's micro trauma, right? It's micro building, right? And I realized if we did 30 seconds of 9 stations of each exercise, that's only 5 minutes. So I read an article on sprinters doing exercises back in 2005 to get a 2% edge, strength training exercises. And I thought about that, and then I applied it. I said, okay, if we do 9 stations for a round, which is a 5-minute round, that's still, you and I have both seen fights go sideways the last 30 seconds,
Yeah,
last minute.
absolutely.
So how do I build more gas in the tank? Okay, if I had 5 seconds per exercise, that gives them almost a minute of extra gas. It's like the old boxers. If you're fighting 12 rounds, you train 15 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing a marathon, you don't run 26 miles, you run 30 miles. So I started compounding that. And the thing I found is it's a shitload of calories burned. I think Kenny Florian, who I couldn't get his heart rate above 170 because he was a soccer freak in college. You know, we filmed it one day, 575 calories in 17 minutes with an athlete.
That's incredible.
I know. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
I think I got something.
Yeah, an untrained individual, it's one thing. You're talking an elite trained individual. That's incredible. Unheard of.
Exactly. Unheard. 17 minutes? I can sell that all fucking day. That means a regular individual. What's that going to be, John? Like 1,000, maybe 900?
Easy.
You know, and the fun thing was I did it at the Idea World Show. I did Fitness World Show in 2011 with 200 pairs. Here I am at Idea World, the biggest fitness show, and I turn around. It's sold out. There's 200 people, and they're filming me turn into a product. It was like Bugs Bunny. Now what, Rabbit? Now what, Rabbit? And I just go, fuck it. So 45 minutes into it, we had lost like 15 people on the ladder drills, and then a new friend of mine. Then I just met her, Heather Coyle, who's gorgeous, 35. I mean, unbelievably fit. I'm like, this is a lot of calories burned. She yells out 45 minutes into it, 887, and she's a runner.
Oh my goodness.
I go, and that's why when I tell my guys and my coaches, I go, you can't sell this. I go, it's 1,200 to 1,500 calories for the layman and 45 minutes. To lose a pound of fat, 3,500 kilocalories have to go. Makes sense to me. Stay on your fucking treadmill. Stay on your fucking elliptical. Boring. So I have the ability to adapt it. So we'll use we use John Brookfield's ropes.
Mm-hmm.
We'll use these thick bands for what I call pit bull drills. I'll have them stand on a core board and smash down. I know you love these rage balls,
mm-hmm.
The Bosu, as you know. And, one of the unique things I have that nobody else has in Rhode Island, I think, I got exposed to 15 years ago was the power plate, vibration strength training. The surges. Here's one of my other favorite tools, a 5-gallon water jug, which is unstable, right? It's unstable. Try using that as a fucking kettlebell, right? Try doing a Turkish get-up with that. It's like an 88-pounder. And then one of my favorite things, rebounders, which people don't realize the power of rebounding because you're working with gravity versus against it. And NASA did a study on this. I could send it to you. 1979, they found that a 38% increase in bone mass and muscle mass. And every cell got stronger. And then my favorite...
the lymphatic system, too, with the whole rebounding. There's so many different things.
So many different things. And then one of my favorite suspension trainers from Pure Motion, the AirFit. Why do I like it? It's made in the USA, number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, it rotates. Number three, the other units that are out there, you can't get your feet in the loops. Right?
Yep.
Simple. So that's some of the stuff that we like. And the other thing I know Fairfax want to touch on this, on some of the challenges I faced. Then we got our sledgehammers, our mace balls. And I want to touch on this because I think it's important. I hope you don't mind do you have anything else you want to ask?
No,
me?
that was to be the next question. I just want people to have a background because I've been following your stuff for years in magazines, and we have a lot of the same philosophies. And I wanted people to get that background of who you are as a person because you experienced these tremendous highs being the trainer of trainers, but you have had some extremely tough times personally and emotionally on your journey. And I wanted you to be able to share how you overcame that adversity and the lessons you learned coming through the other side because most people are facing adversity right now. and they need to hear a message of hope.
I appreciate that, John, and I appreciate this. I always believe like some people come into your life, and I think you and I came into each other's life for a reason, and Drew and your whole team. And when I hadn't heard from Fairfax in years, and he reached out to me. I go, absolutely. And then I told him what happened to me the past 2 years. He's like, Kev, you need to send this out there. I said, fine, I'll talk about it. So I had a good marriage. It didn't go so well the past 12 years. Difficult divorce, kind of broke me emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And I won't say anything derogatory about my ex. She is who she is. But I didn't know the emotional toll that would take on me, like not being able to go into the same town that I had a house with my kids for. Looking at pictures of my kids and memories from before, it was crushing. And I helped other clients through divorces, and I used to tell them 2 to 3 years, and yeah, it's been 2 years for me. It's been fucking tough. So tough, then going out in the dating world was like, 50 years old and starting to date again when you think you have nothing. That's another freaking torture. Really is. Because, everybody's got some shit, some baggage, and you can't get involved with somebody without their own baggage. I have my flaws. Everybody has their flaws. Everybody has their flaws. So I went into a deep depression, a year ago, was hospitalized once. And then I realized they were just pushing pills on me. Been in my own therapy for years, and my own therapy for dealing with death, because I literally went from my father's death at 12. I was at a funeral every year for 10 years straight in my family, to the point where my closest cousin, Georgie from New Hampshire, I was just getting drunk with him at 15, and he was 18. Bad drug deal went sour 2 hours after Christmas. He took a bullet to the head. And you walk into that, I don't like open casket. I put in my will, put me on a fucking goddamn boat, give me my samurai sword, light it on fire like a fucking Viking, and put a plaque someplace. I do not want to don't waste the fucking space on me. And I want to go out with all my music gone, as far as I'm concerned. I don't want to get too emotional about this, but it's tough. Yeah, I mean, I hit a low point. Like exercise has always been my foundation to feel better. My managing my stress, because everybody has to manage their stress. Some people pick up food, some people pick up drugs, some people are sex addicts. Everybody has something different. And I did it constructive. So, as much as I want to exercise, I need to exercise. As much as I want yoga, I need yoga. As much as I want martial arts, I need martial arts. As much as I want good relationships, I need good relationships. As much as I want to be successful, I need to be successful. And you have to remember that. And, my one saying on I put this, I'm a big fan of Dr. Wayne Dyer. And he always said, hold your vision, keep your passion. And I always thought about that. And I said, there's something missing. Hold your vision, keep your passion, maintain and invest in your fucking perseverance, no matter what anybody tells you. Because any rational person would give up. You've been through your stumbling blocks. I've been through mine. My DVD series, The Basement Tapes, the best-selling series, I had a sponsor the whole 9 yards in 2007, and all went south. I turned around, took the money out of my house, did it myself. And my fulfillment company was the third bay of my fucking garage. And I didn't care where the videos were going, fucking Nepal, I would send them because it was building a base. Now, when I hit this depression and it just fucking hit me, like it was slowly, business started to slide. You go from 3,300 square feet to 1,100 square feet. I wasn't coaching anymore. I had some trouble. My daughter, it was a fucking mess. I got so low that this is a reality. I tried to slit my own throat. Medication wasn't helping. Therapy wasn't helping. And I got that low. Was that a selfish act? Yes. And I was that low. I was that desperate. And that's why I'm in the middle of, it's going to be released right before Thanksgiving. I'm going to release my next book. There's Light in the Tunnel, How to Survive and Thrive with Depression. Thank God I have a good therapist, because after I did this, I tried to literally go off the Tobin Bridge, and he committed me. Yeah. So my Christmas morning was waking up at McLean Hospital, which I learned a lot from, a lot of those beautiful people. And then I found out about ECT therapy, gave it a shot, and it fucking worked. You need, that's electroconvulsive therapy. It's got a 90% cure rate. Unfortunately, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest did not present that right. You basically get knocked out. One of my best friends, Craig Rose, has to drive me, pick me up the whole 9 yards. It's a fucking shit show, but it worked. They couldn't believe the ECT team at McLean could not believe how fast I turned around after 3 treatments. You need 16, and then you get to a point of tapering. And, Right now I'm in complete remission. And I'll tell you, I'm not going back. They said to me, I asked them, I go, when do you know when do I know I don't need this? When you ask, they said, great people there, lovely people at the Claim Hospital, especially the ECT floor. You'll know when you ask those questions. So about 2 months ago, I'm like, the past 2 times, I didn't need that. I just don't need ECT anymore. And I say, perfect. I went over it with the nurse practitioner who knows me well. He goes, when you need us, Kevin, we're here. Now, I believe that from biology belief, you can change your genetics. You can change the biology of your brain. Look at John Frankl, Viktor Frankl, excuse me. Man's Search for Meaning. How do you get to that place where you can torture me, but you can't hurt what's inside me? Mm-hmm. So, yes, it's a chemical problem, depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and you can change it. It's a matter of noticing the triggers, noticing the signs, meditation, Tai Chi, whatever it takes, talking to friends, and I had a huge stigma attached to it. There's a huge stigma attached to mental illness, as PTSD, anxiety, depression, all of it. There's a huge stigma. And that stigma is something's wrong with you. No, you have a disease. Can you change the disease? Yes. Is it a chemical imbalance? For whatever reason, yes. And guess what? Don't fucking give up. Try ECT. Try this. Try whatever. Don't stick your head in the sand. It's kind of like what's going on now. We've got this great program called Flag for Hope, which gives out hope coins. Jump on board with that. It's an act of kindness coin. I'll send you the link. Act of kindness coin. Okay, it's called the ripple effect from my partner Chris Kavanaugh. The ripple effect. Get people moving. Get people going. We've got 30,000 bags with 7 coins in them for $15 membership a month. Okay, instead of complaining, if you don't like what's going on, buy the bag. Think about a family giving out those coins, and what you can do is you can track the coin. So you give it out to somebody. You give it out to somebody, right? As an act of kindness. You tell them that. You tell them to pass it on. Then you can track the coin. You go back and enter what you did. Think about it's a pebble in the pond. In 1 month, we could have 210,000 acts of kindness. By January 1st, we could have 1 million. What will that do to the country? We go back old school. Yeah. So all those projects, getting over stuff, I think, you basically have to do that. Outwork everybody. You have, and the other thing that I've learned after being divorced is you have to be comfortable in your own skin. You have to love yourself first. There's nothing wrong with some self-centeredness because you got to take care of you first. It's like what I learned in Al-Anon. Al-Anon says this. Al-Anon says, it's like being on a plane. When the masks fall down, oxygen mask, put your mask on first, then put your kid's mask on. Because if you don't survive, it doesn't work. Real quick, I'll close with this. I learned this from a good motivational thing this morning. You have a gift or multiple gifts. Don't keep them wrapped. I love that quote. Don't keep them wrapped.
It's so inspirational. And here's the thing. We have got to get rid of the stigma. And, that's why I'm so glad you're on here because I want to partner with you in this because here's the big thing that, we say this all the time. If you broke your arm, nobody would say anything about you getting a cast for that arm. You'd think, you don't get a cast on your arm, you're an idiot. So why do people, when there's mental illness, all of a sudden attach a stigma to getting treatment? Nobody attaches stigmas to any other kinds of treatment.
Cancer.
Why do we treat mental illness any differently? I've never understood that.
John, that touches my heart and my soul to hear it from somebody like you. And it's funny. This is a quote from one of my closest clients who's going through a very tough time with addiction with a family member. You really know who your friends are when you become transparent, don't you?
Absolutely.
John, we don't know each other well, but this is a Boston compliment. I'll lay down in fucking traffic for you.
Oh man, that means so much, Coach.
You got it?
That means so much, Coach.
You too, Drew, and you too, Joe.
That means so much.
Like Fairfax, he called me once. I picked up the phone. Fairfax knows I haven't seen him in 5 years. I'd be like, Fairfax, Hack. I always call him Hack. I go, where do you need me? Right? I know you got to go, and my next client just came in, my partner. I got to do some yoga with him.
Okay. Real quick before you go, where can people find out more about you? I want people to get in touch with you, your book, everything going on. And I want to thank you for being on the show. I know I just saw the client walk in right there. So can you just share just how people can get in touch with you, find more about you, and get the book?
Burn, not burn.
No S.
Burn. Burnwithkearns.com. You can, I'm on Facebook, the whole 9 yards, and I'll do this 508, because I answer my phone, 404-8503. And of course, you're probably going to have me back on, aren't you?
Yeah, I only got through half of my questions, brother. So we've got so much to talk about because we're cut of the same cloth as fitness. So
Johnny, anytime you need me, bro, we're on. And tell Brookfield I said hi.
I will for sure. Thank you so much, Kevin. I also want to thank our sponsors, ZionMissionaryChurch.net, NeuroPowerSource.com, podcast producer Drew Kiespert, video director Jolynn Thomas, head of talent relations, Mr. Fairfax Hackley. Be sure to rate us and subscribe to the Pressing Limits podcast and follow us on Instagram for the latest episodes. For more ways to watch and listen to this podcast, check out the Pressing Limits podcast website.